3 days after I gave birth, my mother-in-law stood in my hospital room, lifted my daughter up like a piece of evidence, and told a room full of relatives that the baby couldn't be their blood. I was still in a hospital gown, still bleeding, still learning how to hold my own child without my hands shaking, and she said it loud enough for the nurses at the station down the hall to hear it. "This baby can't be our blood." My husband's face went blank. His sister crossed her arms and smiled. And I, sore, exhausted, half asleep, did the one thing that scared every Caldwell in that room more than tears ever could. I smiled back, because I read DNA for a living, 12 years of it. I know exactly what blood says, and I know exactly what it doesn't. What none of them understood, what my mother-in-law had spent 40 years never letting herself imagine, was that the test she was about to demand wouldn't expose me at all. In 10 days, a doctor would walk through a door with the answer, and it would belong to her. My name is Thea. I'm 35 and I'm a senior genetic counselor at Ridgemont Medical Center. My whole job is sitting across a desk from families on the worst day of their lives and turning a lab report into something a human being can actually survive hearing. I read results the way other people read recipes, scanning for what matters, flagging what's wrong, translating numbers into something a parent can hold on to. I didn't grow up with any of that. My mother died when I was 9. Stage 4 ovarian cancer, caught far too late. After that, it was just me and my dad in a 2-bedroom apartment, him driving a delivery truck before sunrise, me teaching myself to braid my own hair off a blurry video. I waited tables through community college and worked the night shift in a hospital lab to finish my master's. Everything I have, I built 1 hour at a time. So when Daniel proposed, I wasn't just saying yes to a man. I was saying yes to a table with no empty chairs, grandparents, aunts, cousins who show up to recitals and bring casseroles when someone's sick. A last name that meant somebody was waiting for me at the end of the day. The name was Caldwell. In our part of Virginia, that name got whispered at church fundraisers and engraved on hospital wings. Daniel's father, Robert, had been a county judge. He died 3 years ago, a heart attack. Quick and final, and after that, his widow, Diane, became the sole keeper of the Caldwell legacy. She guarded it like a woman who had once been told, a long time ago, that she wasn't good enough for it herself. Diane wore the same strand of pearls every time I saw her. 4 generations old, she told me once. Passed down mother to daughter-in-law, but only to blood Caldwells. She looked right at me when she said it. Not cruel, exactly, just clear. Those pearls were never going to be mine, and we both knew it. She had been measuring me since the day Daniel first brought me home SC, scanning my shoes at the front door, asking where I went to school, and then letting the silence do the insulting. His sister, Brooke, had learned the technique by heart. She never accused anyone of anything. She just wondered out loud, raised her eyebrows, mentioned things in passing. There was one moment I should have paid attention to. A Thanksgiving, years back, Diane flipping through old photos, frowning at one of Daniel as a boy. He never did favor Robert much, did he? Brooke shrugged. Diane moved on. I filed it somewhere I wouldn't look at for months. But I had no idea how bad it was about to get. It started 4 hours after Luna was born. I was still hooked to an IV, eyes barely staying open, when Daniel's family arrived in a wave. Diane first, then Brooke and her husband, then Aunt Carol with a balloon bouquet and her phone already recording. Diane lifted Luna out of the bassinet without asking and held her at arm's length, studying her face the way you'd inspect fruit. The market. She's dark, Diane said. She glanced at Brooke. Caldwell babies are fair, always have been. She does have a lot of hair for a newborn, Brooke offered. Carol kept filming. My mother had dark hair, I said. Recessive traits don't run in a straight line. I can draw you a Punnett square if you'd like. Nobody laughed. Diane set Luna back down like she was returning a library book. We'll see, she said. 2 words. A door closing without a slam. The text started 2 days after we brought Luna home. Always sent to Daniel. Always meant for me. Asterisk, just checking in, sweetheart. Newborns get fussy when the home feels unsettled. Asterisk, then, an hour later. Asterisk, I'm not saying anything, Danny. I'm just saying in this day and age, it's wise to be sure. There's no shame in certainty. Asterisk, my 64-year-old mother-in-law signed one of her accusations with LOL. Then I found out what Brooke had been doing. Daniel's friend Kyle called him, and I only heard Daniel's half of it. WH. Told you that? That's insane, man. That's absolutely insane. He hung up and couldn't look at me right away. "Brooke's been telling people you worked late a lot in the third trimester," he finally said. "That it was suspicious. Working late, I'm a genetic counselor. Sometimes I'm the person still sitting with a family at 6 p.m. while they absorb the worst news of their lives." Brooke had taken the most ordinary fact about my schedule and sharpened it into a weapon. She also told Kyle's wife that Luna's coloring doesn't match the family line, Daniel admitted. Direct quote. "I set Luna down very carefully because my hands were shaking and I refuse to be a person who holds a baby while rage builds behind her teeth. Your sister is calling me an adulteress to your friends," I said. "And your mother started it." He didn't deny either part. "Here is the thing I need you to understand." Daniel never doubted me out loud. He never looked at Luna and hesitated. But doubt doesn't have to live inside a person to do its damage. It just has to be in the room. He got quieter. He started running the numbers behind his eyes. He's an engineer. He can't help it. I could almost hear the structure creaking. "Maybe we should just do the test," he said one night in the dark, Luna asleep between us. "Just to shut them up." "So your mother accuses me," I said. "Your sister tells half the county, and the solution is that I take a test to prove I'm not a liar?" He had no answer for that. Neither did I yet. But lying there beside my sleeping daughter, I stopped thinking like a wife and started thinking like a counselor. Diane hadn't said Daniel isn't the father. She had said this baby can't be our blood. Our the whole bloodline. That was a completely different question, and I knew exactly how to answer it. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. The week that followed was the loneliest of my life. Daniel didn't pull away, not really. He could. Hung around the house at 3 a.m. He brought me water while I nursed. But there was a pane of glass between us now, thin and invisible, and every time I looked at him I could see him on the other side of it, still quietly recalculating. The rest of the family went silent in a way that was louder than any phone call. Patty stopped liking my posts. Carol, who used to comment on everything, said nothing at all. Brooke sent exactly one text. Praying for clarity for everyone. The Christian lady equivalent of sharpening a knife. I didn't cry. That's not a brag. It's a diagnosis. When things get bad, I don't collapse. I organize. I fold burp clocks into perfect thirds. I sort onesies by size. I line things up by color: white, cream, pale yellow, because if the data is clean, the outcome is defensible. And if the outcome is defensible, then nobody can take it from me. My therapist calls it competence as armor. She isn't wrong. The trouble with armor is it doesn't only keep out the people trying to hurt you. It keeps out the ones trying to love you too. Then Daniel left his phone on the kitchen counter one morning, and it lit up with my own name. A group chat. Family matters. Diane, Brooke, Carol, Patty, Greg. 6 months of messages I'd never seen. I scrolled with the cold focus I usually save for abnormal karyotypes. The coffee with a man at the Panera on Route 9 that Carol didn't want to start rumors about that was my patient's husband. I'd been delivering his wife's results. But Carol had already built the scaffolding and Diane was laying the bricks. When the baby comes, we'll know. Caldwell babies look a certain way. And then buried 3 months back a message from Diane I almost scrolled right past. I don't know why Danny turned out the way he did. He never favored Robert, not once. But that boy is mine, and I'll protect this line. I read it twice. He never favored Robert. The sentence dropped into my chest like a coin into deep water, spinning S. As it sank. That was the moment something shifted. I had ordered nothing yet. But I realized the question Diane kept demanding I answer was not the dangerous one. There was another question underneath it, one she had spent 40 years never thinking to be afraid of. And I was the one person in that entire family equipped to ask it. No one was coming to save me, so I was going to do the one thing I do best. Diane forced my hand at a dinner she called Welcome Luna. It was an ambush dressed up as a casserole. 14 people at the long Caldwell table, aunts, cousins, neighbors who'd known Robert from Rotary. She waited until the coffee was poured, then stood without clinking a glass. She didn't need to. When Diane Caldwell stands up, the whole room stops breathing. "There are questions about Luna's parentage," she said, looking at me the way a judge looks at a defendant. "And the loving thing is to settle it. A DNA test. If there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to fee." Then the line she'd clearly rehearsed all week. No test, no name. That's how blood works. She had built the entire evening around my refusal, the tears, the storming out, the proof be avoidance that would let her tell everyone I had something to hide. So when I picked up my coffee, took a sip, set it down, and said, "Fine, let's test the blood," her mouth opened and closed like a fish pulled out of water. "But I have one condition," I said. "I'll run the paternity test Daniel and Luna, accredited lab, full chain of custody. But since you said asterisk our asterisk blood, since this is about the Caldwell asterisk bloodline asterisk for swine day." Most of the table had no idea what that word meant. Diane did, or she pretended to. "Test whatever you like," she said, smoothing her pearls. "The truth doesn't care how many questions you ask it." It was the only thing we ever agreed on. The next morning I called my colleague, Dr. Naomi Hartley, clinical geneticist, 15 years, no number. "Nonsense. Paternity panel Daniel to Luna," I told her. "And a grandparentage panel Diane to Luna." A pause on the line. "You're running grandparentage on the grandmother." "She's the one who questioned the blood," I said. "I'm answering the question she actually asked." Naomi understood instantly. A paternity test would only prove Daniel was the father, but a grandparentage test would ask whether Diane was truly Luna's grandmother. And if Daniel was confirmed as the father and Diane was excluded as the grandmother, then there was only one explanation left, and it had nothing to do with me. "Independent lab," Naomi said. ABB accredited. Double-blind processing. Nobody can say you pulled strings. That's the point, Thea. Week by week, quietly, methodically. Sealed kits, barcodes, a chain of custody no one could ever challenge. Diane showed up in her pearls and let them swab the inside of her cheek with the patience of a woman who was certain she was about to be vindicated. She had no idea what was coming. Diane scheduled the reckoning herself. A resolution gathering, she called it the hospital family conference room. Time to Luna's one-week checkup. Witnesses arranged like a jury. She wanted the verdict read with the full institutional weight of a hospital behind it. She just never imagined the verdict would be hers. We walked in at exactly 2:00. Daniel carried Luna's carrier. I carried nothing. Diane sat at the head of the table in her pearls, Brooke to her right with her arms folded, Carol across the way with her phone already tilted up. Two of Daniel's uncles sat by the door, looking like men waiting for a casket to arrive. Diane didn't wait for us to sit down. "This is about family," she began, "about truth, and about protecting the legacy Robert spent his life building." She turned to me, chin up, hands steady, the pearls catching the light. And then she delivered the line she'd been rehearsing since the delivery room. "This baby can't be our blood." The room went airless. Brooke nodded slowly, confirming. Carol's hand tightened around her phone, and I did the thing that scared them all over again. I smiled. Not a smirk. The smile of someone who's been holding an answer in both hands and finally gets to set it down on the table. "Thank you, Diane," I said, "for asking the question." The door opened behind us. Dr. Hartley stepped in with a manila envelope and the professional calm of a woman who has done this 1,000 times. She sat, opened it without ceremony, and laid 2 reports side by side where everyone could see them. "Paternity first," she said. "Daniel Caldwell compared to Luna Caldwell across 21 genetic markers. Combined paternity index, greater than 1 million. Probability of paternity, 99.998%. Daniel is Luna's biological father. There is no ambiguity." A breath went out of the room. An uncle exhaled. Brooke's mouth opened and closed. Diane R. Recovered fast. "Fine. The paternity's settled, but the grandmother panel will show the bloodline." She gripped the edge of the table the way a person grips a railing on a high staircase because letting go means falling. "I ran it," Naomi said. "The grandparentage analysis compared Diane Caldwell to Luna Caldwell." She paused. "The result was an exclusion. Diane Caldwell is excluded as Luna's biological grandmother. The probability of a grandparental relationship is less than 1/100th of 1%. 3 full seconds of silence. "That's impossible," Diane said. "If Danny is the father, then I'm the grandmother. That's how it works." Naomi folded her hands. "If Daniel is the biological father, and Thea is the biological mother, which she is, then a grandmaternity exclusion means one thing. The tested grandmother shares no biological relationship with the tested father." Diane's face went white. "What are you saying?" Naomi looked at me. She was handing me the floor. Not because she couldn't explain it, but because she understood this moment belonged to the person who had asked the question. I turned to my mother-in-law. My hands were perfectly still. The test confirms Luna is Daniel's daughter, which means I was faithful. There was never an affair. I let that land. But it also shows that you are not biologically related to Daniel. He was born at Grayson County General, a small rural hospital, a busy Saturday night before barcoded Thirst-50 bands existed. The findings are consistent with a newborn switch. You're right, Diane. She isn't your blood. I paused. Neither is he. Diane stood up so fast her chair hit the wall behind her. That's a lie. You tampered with it. You work at this hospital. Independent, accredited lab, Naomi said evenly. Chain of custody intact from collection to analysis. The results are not in dispute. Diane turned to Daniel, her eyes wet, her jaw rigid. Danny, tell them I'm your mother. He looked at her for a yell. Ongoing. I watched his throat work. You are my mother, he said quietly. You raised me. I'm not arguing with that. But the results are true. What happened next was quieter than I expected. Diane sank back into her chair the way a person sits down when their legs stop cooperating. She told the table, almost to herself, that when she married Robert, his mother had called her a nobody, said the Caldwell name would have to carry her, and that she should be grateful for it every single day. She had spent 40 years proving that woman wrong. The house, the name, the legacy, all of it built around a son who, it turned out, wasn't her blood at all. Then she pulled the pearls off her neck, set them on the table with a small click, and told me this was my fault. I told her I had only answered the question she asked, and the one she should have asked a long time ago. She walked out without touching her son. She didn't slam the door, she just left, and the pearls lay there glowing, dully under the fluorescent light, belonging to no one. Diane hasn't called since. The hospital records request is still working its way through a system that absorbed Grayson County General 20 years ago. Somewhere out there is a 40-year-old stranger who was born in Caldwell and never knew it. And Daniel, who spent his whole life feeling like a guest at his own table, finally understands why. I put the pearls in a box in the hall closet, not thrown away, not kept close, just set aside the way you set aside a question you've already answered. At the very bottom of Luna's keepsake drawer is her hospital band. Caldwell Luna, asterisk barcoded, the kind they didn't have in 1986, the only band that ever told the truth about where she belonged. Because blood can tell you where you came from. It has never once told anyone where they belong. That part you choose.